So when I started, Danny, they weren't actually using the machine. They had bought it with the intention of just pouring all red wines by the glass in there, and found within days of opening that with high volume, the machine just it couldn't keep up.
Couldn't keep up.
So it kind of fell.
Because it takes a while for it to dispense.
It takes a while. You can only dispense one pour position at a time.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So
yes.
You can't pour 2 bottles from the machine at
No,
once.
and you can't be pouring 2 at the same time. And
obviously with the busy bar.
The busy bar.
Every time I've come here, it's been extraordinarily busy. So
yes.
Always the bar is full. So
the bar is always full, and they're also
don't want to wait.
And they're also putting wine up for service in the trattoria. So it was very frustrating, and it kind of got abandoned very quickly in all the craziness of opening rush. Opening rush.
One of the most talked about openings in the last 3 years, I think.
I know. I wish I was here for it, but I was actually still in Italy. So
you were doing your homework.
I was doing my homework. So when I started, they were just using it as a very expensive display unit, and they had each of the bottles in there that we were pouring, but we weren't using them. And he said, we invested a lot of money in this machine, and I really would like to see it find a way to work out for us. And so that was where I
This is Danny.
This is Danny. Danny.
So of course Danny Meyer, author of book Second Helpings.
Oh no, Setting the Table.
Setting the Tables. Cut that out later.
Yeah, the author of Setting the Table.
One of the great restaurateurs, famous for Gramercy Tavern, and okay, we'll cut that out too.
Yeah.
All right, so.
So Danny wanted me to find a way to make it work, and my first thought was, as we were coming into this was last summer, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did a Nebbiolo bar? Just because, Nebbiolo is personally probably my favorite Italian varietal, and
one of the great
varietals of Italy and in the world. Like in the world. And I know that there's so many, for me, okay, we'll cut that too. For me personally, as great as Barolo can be, it's prohibitive price-wise.
It is getting more expensive.
And
especially for the time it is.
To drink every day, you can't just drink Barolo every day. Plus, it's a tannic beast, and you never know what you're getting into. So if I had my everyday Nebbiolo, it would be something more like a Valtellina, or even a Crema.
Okay.
I really enjoy high altitude, leaner Nebbiolos, and I could drink them all day. I love them.
So these are other areas outside of the area around Alba where they make the Nebbiolo grape into wine. Sometimes blended with other grape varieties, but sometimes on its own.
Yeah, we definitely made a focus to use wines that were 100% Nebbiolo, or at least 90. And so for me, I was feeling like, well, God, I love Crema and I love Valtellina, and I don't feel like people really know them.
Absolutely.
And so the idea was, I was like, you start thinking about it, we could do Barolo, we could do Barbaresco, Crema, Gemme, Gattinara, Valtellina, then Sferzato, which is the Passimiento version of Valtellina, and then you've got Donas, and then then there's Bocca. I never ended up putting a Bocca on, but you end up with all these. You realize that there's so many different options. And there's also white Nebbiolo Chiavenasca from the Valtellina. We did 2 sparkling Nebbiolos. But so the whole brainchild was like, I'm gonna make these 8 pours all about, and actually it was 12 because of the whites and the sparklings. I'm going to make them all about showing all the different faces and the different appellations for this grape. And one of my special pour in it was this 1996 Coulis Brackleme Gemme from Antici Vignetti de Cantalupo, which I enjoy because it translates to the old vines of the Laughing Wolf.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And I'd been at the winery. It was one of my first stops in my first week when I was in Italy, and he still was selling for 35 euro a bottle 96 Coulis Brackleme Gemme, and I bought 1 bottle, and I ended up sharing it with, I did harvest after this at La Spinetta, and the guys who I worked in the cellar with took me out for dinner, and at the end of the harvest or of the month that I spent doing harvest with them, and I brought my Gemme, and they, I think at first initially, I'm down exactly around Alba, and you pull out a Gemme, and even down there, as their own grape, their same region, they're kind of like, this couldn't possibly be as good as our wonderful Barolo, and it was the star of the night.
I don't like what people say about Brooklyn.
Exactly. People in Manhattan are never going to agree that Brooklyn's all right. So it ended up being the star of the night, and it stayed with me, this wine, that I was like, why did I only buy 1 bottle? So when I got here and I started working things together for this Nebbiolo bar, I asked Doug Poenner if because who imports the wine.
Who owns the Poenner importation company and brings this wine in, I believe.
He does bring this wine in. I asked if we could ask Alberto if there was any way he would part with some, especially for us. And lo and behold, it all worked out, and we got 12 cases sent to us directly from the winery. All the bottles have been in fabulous condition. It's just drinking so beautifully. And actually, at the exchange rate, I guess I shouldn't quote, but we got him.
So you stole this wine, basically.
We got him at the exchange rate. I'm like, I basically paid exactly what I paid for.
Wow, there.
At the winery.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. It was amazing. It was a perfect deal. I'm into my last case of it. It slightly breaks my heart. I won't sell it as often as I used to because I'm starting to feel like this is a wine for special people. But for me, it was something that it was one of my favorite wines that I had on my trip. It was a special project that we brought it in, and it was really cool that we were pouring it by the glass and that people could just have a glass.
Now, Cantalupo, they make a range of wines, and these are wines that you could probably find at retail.
Oh,
in terms
of course.
Of the Rosé, El Mimo is always
Yeah.
very popular.
The Mimo you can find a lot of places. The Agamium is their kind of entry level, just Nebbiolo, and the Agamium. I've seen it around town on lists for under $50. So it's certainly
people can.
Yes, certainly very approachable. And then there's the current vintages of their Gamay. Gamay being, people always think they're like Gamay. It's like no.
Right.
Gamay being the name of the town, which lends itself to the DOCG.
So not the Bujo.
Yeah. And usually Gamays can have a little bit of Vespaolo in them. No, I'm sorry. Not Vespaolo.
That's why you lean up.
Vespolina. I'm pouring a Vespaolo, so that's why
I do that all the time. And then you have a little bit of a
Yes.
bit more obscure red wine.
I know. I chose this one to highlight because I really love to push people into the very small zone grapes. So this is a grape called Terrano, and it's a local clone of the Refosco grape, which is native to Friuli, and this is grown only in the Carso, which is that little teardrop. I always call it the zipper pull of the boot. That's has the city of Trieste in it, and this is practically. There's almost a point. It's almost completely sectioned off from Italy, and it's alongside Slovenia. And so this grape Terrano you will only find in the Carso, that tiny little region.
So a good example of what you were talking about earlier, really focusing on small producer, but also small zones for making wines that are very distinctive to that area.
Yeah, and Benjamin Ziderich is the winemaker, and he also kind of is in the whole Viniveri group. So this is wines made without sulfites, and as are all his wines, and no temperature control. But it's a fun varietal, and it's very bright, and it's great with fruit. And I actually almost liken it sometimes to what you might get in like southern Rhones, and because there's something.
The kind of depth and weight.
The bright acid, the really vibrant berry flavors. So sometimes when people say they enjoy drinking Grenache and these types of things, if I can talk them into it, I'll try to get them out.
Make them an Italian drinker.
Yeah, make them an Italian drinker, and it's not that it has really anything to do with them, but there's some, it is growing right on the ocean there, so I think it gets that subtle salinity too, and it's just such a unique and different grape that I love to highlight this wine to people. And again, it's nice that
I would think it would go well with some of the signature dishes,
especially the
like
pastas.
boards.
Yeah, I like it with some of our pastas especially. So yeah, so that's a fun grape, and actually something, I'll be a geek for a second. What I was asking when I was there was that they were trying to explain to me, because you see Refosco di Panagolo Rosso?
Okay, sure, the red foot.
Yeah, and so it's with the little red foot Refosco. This is actually a clone of Refos that's in Slovenia.
Oh, wow, I didn't
This
know
isn't
that.
actually from Refosco di Panagolo Rosso, it's from Slovenian Refos. So it's actually much more of a Slovenian wine than it is an Italian.
Which is, Carso's right on the border, and this is an example of how things that are actually seemingly quite similar can be quite different, and why you need someone like Liz to show you some of those differences. Now, here's the wine that's gained a lot of attention over the last few years. What do we have here?
So this is the Terraneri at Rosso, and I selected this wine, well, one, because it's one of my favorite wines to serve in the summer. It's beautiful in that it's good for a Pinot Noir drinker, somebody who wants something kind of light and silky and elegant. But I have been to this winery as well, and I can't tell you, the name of the winery is Tenute delle Terre Nere, which is essentially like House of the Black Earth. And I could not believe when I got there, the color of the soil was actually just jet black. And it made me feel like, wow, they don't call this, House of the Black Earth for nothing.
And that's because of the volcanic
And
influence?
it's because it's on Mount Etna, on the northern slopes of Mount Etna, which is in Sicily, in central eastern Sicily. It's a still active volcano. And so therefore the volcanic matter in their soil, is almost to 100%. I got to see some vineyards here that had all these crazy old pre-phylloxera vines, and essentially these vines couldn't be killed off because there's so much volcanic matter in the soil that it couldn't, affect the soil there.
So they weren't affected by the pests that were killing other vines throughout Europe. That's really cool.
Yeah, and and the thing that's cool about it is I find that it's great for a Pinot Noir drinker, and then it's got this interesting, cool, smoky core through it that really kind of opens up and blossoms even as you drink it. And I've never really had anyone be unhappy with it. I've only had people say, thank you for, I was looking for a Pinot and you talked me into this and I loved it. And
so it's like volcanic Volnay.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. And you have the Fiuto di Mezzo here, which I think is one of their
single vineyards.
Better parcels. Is that true?
It is true. It is a little bit higher up elevation-wise. And I guess the only reason I would also say the Terre Nere is because my initial trip to Italy was really only in the north, and then Jano de Grazia said, oh no, you can't come and not go to Sicily, you've got to come down and see Terre Nere. And I was like, well, I'm going to be in Friuli. And he's, oh, nothing but, you're an American, that's an afternoon drive,
You're an afternoon drive throughout the length of Italy.
I know. So I appreciate that he dragged me down there, and I got there and I got to see it. So
Jano, not only one of the top importers of Italian wine to this country, but also one of the owners of this estate in there.
Yeah, Terre Nere. Sorry.
Well, that's cool. So